Hey everyone, welcome to CinemaCache, where pixels meet purpose and stories get sharp. Powered by Jwayne Productions. This is the backdoor access to everything video branding, creative hustle, and freelance survival. So if you're a freelancer grinding through edits, a business owner asking, do I really need video? And spoiler, yes. Or a startup wondering how to actually stand out, this is your playground. We're not here for fluff. We're here to talk shop, drop knowledge, and give you the tools to make video work for you. So let's get into it. Today's episode, the downfalls of working for exposure only in the freelance video world. The lure of paying an exposure. Imagine you're a budding videographer or a filmmaker, excited to land your first few projects. Then a potential client approaches you with an offer. They have no budget to pay you, but they promise great exposure. Your video will be seen by many, and it could lead to paid work down the line. It's a scenario almost every freelance creative encounters. On the surface, it might sound like a chance to get your name out there. But today, we're going to break down why working for exposure only is usually a bad deal, especially in the video production and freelance world. Today, we'll explore what working for exposure means, why so many clients ask for it, and why saying yes to these requests can hurt you more than they can help you. We'll dive into the supposed benefits and the very real pitfalls, share insights from industry professionals, and talk about how to set boundaries. By the end, both freelancers and clients will understand why real payment, even if a small one, beats exposure dollars every single time. And if you ever do choose to accept an exposure-only gig, we'll tell you how to protect yourself on your terms. So grab a cup of coffee and let's chat about the true values of your work and why you deserve more than just exposure. What does working for exposure mean? Working for exposure means doing a job with no monetary payment, only the promise of publicity or attention in return. Instead of a paycheck, the client offers intangible rewards, like you'll get credit as our videographer. This will build your portfolio. Or the classic, we'll mention you on our website and social media. In theory, exposure is supposed to lead to future paid opportunities by showcasing your work. It's a nebulous, vague kind of currency. Essentially, you exchange your labor for a payment of publicity or recognition. In reality, however, exposure is rarely a guarantee of anything concrete. Unlike a real paycheck, exposure cannot pay for your rent or cover your equipment costs. As one freelancer noted, exposure dollars isn't real currency. Your landlord and your utility company won't accept publicity as payment. What's worse, often these exposure promises are not even clearly defined. Clients might not specify how they plan to give you exposure. Will they put your name in a small print at the end of the video? Will they actually refer you to paying jobs? Usually, these details are left fuzzy, and there's no written guarantee you'll get anything of value in return for your hard work. So when we say working for exposure only, we're talking about those arrangements where you do the full work of a professional, filming, editing, using your gear and your time, and in the end, you receive no money. Maybe you get a pat on the back and a promise that your video will be seen by thousands, which may or may not happen. It's essentially a gamble where all the effort is on you. Before we even get into why that's problematic, let's consider why these offers pop up so often in the first place. Why do clients offer exposure instead of money? If you've been in the freelance video business for even a short period of time, then you know that clients asking for free work are very common. But why do people think this is okay? Here are a few common reasons clients offer exposure in lieu of actual payment. Number 1. Often, the client, maybe a startup, a small business, or an event organizer, insists that they just don't have the money to pay for videography. They may genuinely have a tight budget, or they simply want to cut costs. By dangling future opportunities or visibility, they hope a newcomer will take the bait and do the project for free. It's effectively a way to get work done without financial risk on their part. Number 2, they believe that exposure is valuable currency. Some clients truly believe that giving you credit or a shout out on their platform is doing you a favor. This assumes that their platform or brand is so prominent that just being associated with them is as good as cash. As one observer put it, these offers assume the client's brand is so valuable that just being linked to it is considered the payment. In reality, if the client's brand isn't well known, the exposure might be virtually worthless, which leads to the next point. Number 3, overestimation of their reach. Many times, those who offer exposure have little real audience or reach themselves. They might talk about their number of followers or future plans, but often they don't necessarily have any exposure themselves. So it's like, what exposure will you pay me in? As one freelancer quipped. If a client's platform is smaller than yours or practically non-existent, their promise of exposure is completely empty. And that's downright ironic. You might actually be marketing them with your work rather than them boosting your profile. Number 4, they've gotten free work before and assume it's normal. The more creatives agree to work for free, the more other clients hear that it's possible. In the mind of clients looking for free work, the more people who agree to do free work, the more valid the ask, one writer explains. If so-and-so did it for free, then the clients expect that you should do it as well. Essentially, a culture develops where some clients think that asking for free labor is standard practice. Spoiler, it's not, and it shouldn't be. Number 5, they appeal to your passion or portfolio. You'll hear lines like, "It's a great opportunity to showcase your skills," or "perfect for your portfolio." Such clients frame it as doing you a favor because you're passionate about filmmaking. They assume since you love what you do, you won't mind doing it for free. Or they figure if you're new and you have to do freebies to build a reel. But as we'll discuss, even newcomers don't truly benefit from being unpaid over and over. And finally, number 6, they promise future paid work or connections. The infamous, "do this for free now and I'll have lots of paying work for you later." Or, "I'll recommend you to all my friends and clients." This is often the greatest lie in history, as one photographer put it. In most cases, that big payoff later never materializes. And if it does, they still expect a cheap rate because you've worked for free before. We'll dive into how free gigs rarely turn into paid gigs in reality. From the client's perspective, offering exposure is all reward and no risk for them. They get a video or project done essentially for nothing. If it succeeds and looks great, then they benefit. If not, they didn't lose any money. It's easy to see why it's attractive to them. But now, let's talk about why it's usually a raw deal for you, the freelancer. How exposure-only gigs benefit the client and not you. When a client convinces a videographer to accept exposure as payment, the client stands to gain a lot, while the freelancer takes on almost all the costs. Consider what the client gets versus what you get. They receive a professional quality video or service without paying a single dime. This can save them hundreds or thousands of dollars. They can use your work to promote their event, product, or business, and potentially earn real money or recognition from it. In short, they profit or achieve their goals for free. Additionally, if you deliver good work, the client might try to use you again under the same conditions, or refer other people to you, often telling those people that you work cheaply or for free. The client is essentially getting something for nothing. A great deal for them, a terrible deal for you. You spend your time, your effort, your creativity, and often your own money for gear, software, travel, and other things to complete the project. In return, you get maybe a line in the credits, a portfolio piece, or a mention on social media. But does that really help pay your bills or grow your business? It's unlikely. The client might praise your work, but praise doesn't put food on the table. Even that portfolio piece argument is shaky at best. You could often create better portfolio content on your own terms, or work on a personal passion project, rather than tailor your work to a client's needs for free. In essence, the client reaps the real value, while the freelancer gives away their value. This dynamic also skews the professional relationship. The client might even unconsciously respect the project less because they didn't invest any money in it. There's a saying, people value what they pay for. When something is free, clients will tend to take it for granted or make endless demands because they have nothing to lose. It's not uncommon to hear freelancers say that clients who pay the least have the highest expectations, a frustrating irony. Moreover, the client is taking no risk. If the project goes south, then they can change their mind, or they can walk away easily since they haven't paid you. You, on the other hand, have invested hours of work that you can never get back. There's no contract or payment to enforce accountability, unless you insisted on a contract, which many who agree to exposure forget to put in place. In short, exposure-only arrangements create a win-lose scenario. The client wins, and you lose. Now let's break down the major pitfalls and downfalls for freelancers who agree to work for exposure only. Why is it almost always a bad idea? Let's look at the real costs of free work and why those supposed benefits of exposure often turn out to be nightmares. Why working for exposure only is usually a bad idea. Taking on unpaid projects for the promise of exposure can feel tempting, especially if you're just starting out, or the client paints a rosy picture of future success. But there are many reasons why seasoned videographers and freelancers warn against it. Let's unpack the key downfalls of working for exposure. First, exposure does not pay the bills, literally. This is the most obvious point, but it bears repeating. You can't pay your bills with exposure. No matter how glowing the promised publicity, it doesn't cover rent, equipment costs, or groceries. As one creative entrepreneur bluntly put it, exposure dollars isn't a real currency. You can't cash an exposure check, and you can't balance a budget with exposure dollars. Your landlord, internet provider, and camera rental shop all expect real money. Every hour that you spend on unpaid projects is an hour you're not doing paid work or seeking paying clients. If you keep accepting exposure-only gigs, you may find yourself working full-time, but earning nothing. A fast track to burnout. Beyond the personal financial strain, doing work for free regularly undermines the value of your skills. It sends a message to yourself and others that your work isn't really worth anything. This can hurt your confidence, and it can also set a precedent, making it harder to change fairly later on. Remember, freelancing is a business. Even if you love what you do, you deserve to be compensated. Passion doesn't mean that you should literally work for free meals and a pat on the back. Number 2, it rarely leads to paid work. The exposure myth. One of the biggest reasons freelancers agree to unpaid gigs is the hope that it will open doors to paid opportunities. Unfortunately, the work for exposure now and get paid for work later promise is mostly a myth. Many experienced creatives have looked back on their early careers and found that they've taken on a lot of unpaid work, and it's directly led to nothing. That quote comes directly from Matt Dowling, founder of a freelancers club, who has observed this pattern across the industries. Why doesn't exposure convert into paid jobs? Well, there's a few reasons. Free work begets more free work. Often, doing a gig for free only gets you a reputation as someone who works for free. One free client will bring you another free client, and you'll be working for free all the time. People talk, and if they mention you did something for literally no money, new inquiries might expect the same deal. It's not the reputation that you want. There's no guarantee of visibility. The client might not promote you as promised. They could bury your credits, forget to mention you, or the project itself might not get the reach that they boasted about. If nobody really sees the work, the exposure evaporates. There's no guarantee of future work. The client might indeed come back with more projects, but have gotten the first one for free. They'll likely expect low or no cost again. There's zero guarantee that they will suddenly start paying you later. In fact, they might even seek the next newbie to exploit once you ask for money, because now they know it's possible to get their work for free. Opportunity costs. Perhaps most importantly, while you're busy on a lengthy free project, you could miss opportunities to land paying gigs. Time is a finite resource. By filling your schedule with unpaid work, you risk being unavailable for clients who would have paid. That potential paying client isn't going to wait around for you. They'll hire someone else. In economic terms, the exposure gig has a hidden price: the income you could have earned elsewhere. The reality is, exposure only ever tends to lead to more exposure, not money. If a client insists their exposure offer is valuable, you might even challenge them, politely, to quantify it. How many new clients can I expect? Can you provide a testimonial or referrals? Usually they can't give a solid answer, and that tells you everything. Even they aren't sure that this will do anything for you. Number 3, it devalues your work and the creative industry as a whole. Accepting free gigs doesn't just hurt you. It can have ripple effects on your entire creative community. When many freelancers give into working for exposure, it creates an expectation that creative labor should be free or cheap. And this undermines the market for everyone. Other creatives then struggle to convince clients to pay fair rates because someone else was willing to do it for cheap or nothing. Even if you personally have reasons to take a free job, consider the bigger picture. The more people who do work for free, the more clients feel like asking for free is acceptable. It perpetuates what has been called a culture of exploitation in creative fields. Essentially, it normalizes the idea that because our work is artistic or we enjoy it, we shouldn't be paid, which is simply not true. You're providing real value, and it's work. It's not just a hobby. There's also a fairness issue. If only people who can afford to work unpaid, perhaps those with financial support or other income, can get the exposure and break into the field, it excludes talented folks who can't afford to do free labor. Unpaid work has been cited as a barrier that drives out young talent and reduces diversity in creative industries. Not everyone has the privilege of working for free. By insisting on getting paid, you're not just helping yourself, you're also taking a stand that can help make the industry more accessible, more sustainable, for all kinds of creators. Number 4, it can lead to burnout and stress. Freelancing is tough, even without adding unpaid commitments to your plate. When you say yes to an exposure-only project, you still have to make a living somehow. And that often means juggling the unpaid projects alongside with other paying gigs or a day job to make ends meet. The result? Overwork, exhaustion, and stress. This relentless grind can diminish the quality of your work and the quality of your life. Imagine spending all day editing a free video for a client who's demanding revisions, yet not paying. And then late at night, you're trying to finish a smaller gig to actually pay your bills. It's not sustainable. Over time, talented individuals can get so burned out that they consider giving up freelancing altogether. We've all heard stories of creatives who got fed up and left the industry because they couldn't get fairly compensated. And you don't want to become one of those stories. And I don't want you to become one of those stories either. Number 5, free work often isn't respected or appreciated. It's a sad irony, but the clients who ask you to work for free might not fully appreciate what they get. When someone doesn't invest money in a project, they might treat it as a low priority. They could disappear when it's time to give feedback, or fail to properly credit you as promised. In some cases, clients start talking liberties, since they consider it a favor. They might ask for endless tweaks, expecting you to accommodate because, hey, you agreed to do it for free. Many times, the same client who balks at paying you will pay someone else down the line. They didn't value your generous contribution, they just exploited it. This isn't universally true. Some well-meaning people truly are grateful, but the pattern of horror stories is common enough to be a red flag. If a client truly values your work, they would show you respect for your time and skills by paying you for it, or at least offering some genuine compensation that you find fair. A client who insists on free work might reveal a lot about how they view creatives in general. And if you do a fantastic job for them, they might come to expect that level of work for free every single time. And you've just set a precedent that's hard to break. Number 6, there are no real contracts or protections. When no money changes hands, often no formal contract is put in place either. Or if it is, it may be very loose. And this can leave you extremely vulnerable. For instance, what if a client never uses the video or delays the project indefinitely? You might not be able to show your work or get the credit you were promised. What if they do use the video, but then don't credit you or even remove your name altogether? It happens more than you'd think. Some clients conveniently forgot the credit once they have the goods. Who owns the footage or the final product? Normally, contracts specify ownership and usage rights. With no clear agreement, a client could exploit your work beyond what you intended, and you'd have little recourse. If you're not paid, typically you couldn't even pursue legal action for non-payment, since you agreed there wouldn't be payment. In other words, you have almost no leverage if things go wrong. Essentially, by working on a handshake deal for exposure, you're taking on all the risk. The client has little obligation to you, and any number of scenarios could leave you empty-handed. The project gets canceled. The client isn't satisfied and simply walks away, since they didn't invest anything. Or they use your work without fulfilling their promise of shoutouts or referrals. It's a precarious position to be in as a professional. All of these reasons paint a clear picture. Working for exposure has far more downfalls than benefits for freelancers. But are there any situations where working for free might be justified? Let's take a look at that briefly, because nuance is important. There are very few rare cases where you might consider it, but they're the exceptions, not the norm. Are there any real benefits to working for exposure? By now, it's obvious that in most cases, exposure-only jobs are a raw deal. However, let's play devil's advocate for a moment and talk about the potential benefits that are often claimed, and when, if ever, working for free might make sense. It's crucial to approach this carefully, because these scenarios are only beneficial under very specific conditions, and usually still don't involve a client asking you out of the blue for free work. Here are the situations sometimes known as the exceptions. When you proactively offer a free test or passion project. Occasionally, a freelancer might choose to do a small project for free on their own terms to pursue something that they're genuinely passionate about, or to get a foot in the door with a dream client. For example, you might approach a local nonprofit that you care about and volunteer at to create a short video for their cause, because it matters to you. Or you might do a limited unpaid test shoot or a demo for a reputable brand that you're courting. Delivering maybe one edited sample, not an entire project. In these cases, you are initiating and setting the boundaries, and you've decided the exchange is worth it to you. Importantly, you're not responding to someone else's exploitative offer. You're strategically investing your time with a clear goal and an exit plan. For a cause that you truly believe in, similar to the ones that I just mentioned, working for free might make sense when it's essentially charity or activism. If a project aligns with your personal values or supports a community that you care about, you might want to contribute your skills for free. This is essentially pro bono work. For instance, filming a fundraiser for a cause or helping a friend's artistic endeavor that you love. In these cases, the payment that you get is the satisfaction of furthering a cause. Just be sure that the organization isn't actually flush with cash while you work for free. Many nonprofits have a budget for marketing and advertising. Unique learning or experience opportunities. On rare occasions, an unpaid opportunity might offer a one-of-a-kind experience or training that you genuinely value. For example, if a renowned filmmaker invited you to shadow them on set with no pay just to learn, and you're new, that could be worth it for the mentorship and the networking. Or, if doing a certain project gives you the access to a situation you otherwise couldn't experience, which is personally or professionally invaluable, say traveling somewhere exotic, working with a celebrity, or other situations, you might consider it. Essentially, if the experience itself is something that you'd pay for or that significantly enriches you, it could offset the lack of payment. But these cases are highly specific and usually offered to you as a genuine learning chance, not a client trying to get free labor. Building a portfolio carefully. When you're brand new, there's a pressure to have work to show. Some argue you might do one or two small freebies to build a demo reel or portfolio. The key is to choose those wisely. You might volunteer to film at an event for a family member, or make a spec video that you can showcase. However, even as a beginner, you can often create your own projects or collaborate with peers to build a portfolio without undercutting yourself to a client. If you do something for portfolio purposes, make sure you're actually getting what you need out of it. For instance, a specific type of footage or experience that you can't get otherwise, and limit how many of these that you actually do. And most importantly, make sure that you're able to use the footage that you capture for your portfolio purposes. It's important to stress that these are very few exceptions, not the rule. In all of the previously mentioned scenarios, the common thread is that you have the control and that you've decided the trade-off is worth it for you. And even then, you should still proceed with caution. One freelancer in the community puts it this way: if it's not for money, it has to be for love, or a cause, or an experience. Don't get taken advantage of. Always weigh in what you're putting in against what you realistically expect out of it. If your gut tells you that you're feeling exploited or the deal is too one-sided, it's probably not worth it. For the vast majority of client requests like, come do this video for us, we can't pay you, but it'll be great exposure, the supposed benefits are not worth the drawbacks as we discussed. Now, let's talk about how to respond to such requests and better alternatives to gain experience or exposure without selling yourself short. Setting boundaries and how to handle requests to work for free. So, a client just asked you to do a project for the exposure. How would you respond? This is a tricky spot, especially when you're new or eager for the work. The key is to set clear boundaries and stand up for the value of your work. Here's a few strategies. Educate the client. Sometimes clients really don't understand what they're asking is unfair. Rather than getting angry, a professional approach is to calmly explain that you run a business and why you should be paid. As one piece of advice puts it, amateurs get angry with clients. Professionals educate them. You can outline the costs that go into your work, equipment, time, editing, brainstorming, and more, and mention that you simply cannot take on unpaid projects if you want to stay in the business. This can be done without confrontation. Often a simple, I'd love to help, but as a rule, I can't take on unpaid projects because this is my livelihood, will suffice. Just say no, firmly and clearly. It's okay to decline. In fact, learning to decline free work requests is a crucial skill as a freelancer. It can feel awkward or scary, especially early on, but it gets easier with practice. And believe me when I say this, it really does. When approached with, "We have no budget, but," respond with a polite but firm refusal. For example, "Thank you for thinking of me for this project. Unfortunately, I'm unable to take on any unpaid work. If your budget changes, I'd be happy to discuss a rate." You don't need to apologize for valuing your work. As the Freelancers Union advises, be polite yet firm. Explain that while you're flattered, you only take on paid assignments. You can even highlight the value that you'd bring, your experience, the quality of work, to make it clear that hiring you is worth the cost. Sometimes, that alone educates the client to rethink their approach. Offer alternatives. If you sense the client isn't malicious, but genuinely cash-strapped, you could offer alternative solutions, short of working completely for free. For instance, scale down the project to fit a smaller budget. I can't do a full 5-minute video for free, but I could film a short 60-second highlight reel for a certain amount of money, which might fit your budget. Or suggest a deferred payment or profit share. Although be very cautious because those often never really pay out. Another alternative is bartering. Maybe the client can offer something of value to you in exchange. This works only if it's something that you truly need. Equipment, services, products, the list goes on. But be careful with bartering exposure. It should be something tangible. Point them to students or volunteers. If you're established enough, you might say, "I can't do it for free," but perhaps a student or intern might be interested in the experience. This isn't ideal. It still perpetuates free work, but at least you're removing yourself from the equation. Or at least use this sparingly. Better yet, encourage the client to find room in their budget for creative work next time. There are also communities and forums where people explicitly are looking for volunteer creatives that can connect. Those should be separate from professional job requests. It's not your job to solve their problem, but it's a polite way to pass on the project without burning the bridges. Stick to your rates and policy. Guys, I cannot stress this one enough, so I'll say it again. Stick to your rates and policy. One effective tactic is having a baseline rate or policy and refusing to go below it. For example, you might decide, "I do not do projects for less than X amount of money," or for free, ever. When you have that rule in mind, it's easier to say no. It's just your policy. Some freelancers even publicly state no spec work or unpaid gigs on their website or profiles, which can deter unserious inquiries. By setting this boundary early, you train yourself and potential clients to respect your business. Use a contract. Always. For any project that you do, consider, even if it has some non-monetary component, insist on at least a basic contract. A contract protects both you and the client by clearly outlining the scope, deliverables, timeline, and any form of compensation, even if it's a credit of use of the final video for portfolio. It sets expectations and can include clauses to protect you. For instance, limiting revisions, specifying that credit must be given in a certain way. As one guide emphasizes, ensure every project, no matter the size, is backed by a contract that spells out payment terms, scopes, and deadlines. If a client balks at signing a simple agreement for a free project, that's a major red flag. It shows they weren't even willing to give you written assurances, which likely means their promise of exposure was false. One more note on the tone. You do not have to be apologetic or overly defend your decision not to work for free. Professionals charge for their work. That's understood in virtually every other field. You can compare it to any other service. Would you ask a plumber to fix your pipes for exposure? Probably not. How about a lawyer to represent you for free for the exposure or promise of future clients? Probably not likely. By handling the request professionally, you might even gain the client's respect. Some clients genuinely learn from a firm no. Others, of course, will move on and look for someone else to exploit. But that's fine. Those aren't the clients that you want. You want clients who understand your value and are willing to invest in quality. Saying no to the wrong gigs makes room in your schedule for the right ones. The importance of getting paid, even as a beginner. I want to address a common scenario. You're just starting out in video freelancing. You don't have a big portfolio, and you feel like you have to say yes to free work in order to gain experience. It's true that early on, you might not command high rates, but there's a big difference between a modest beginner's fee and a zero fee. Even being paid a small amount within a client's tiny budget is fundamentally different from nothing. Here's why insisting on being paid something is important right from the very start. Psychological and professional validation. When a client pays you, no matter how little, it establishes a professional relationship. You are a hired creator, not just a volunteer or hobbyist. This does wonders for your confidence and for how the client treats you and sees you. A paying client is more likely to respect your expertise and listen to your terms. Conversely, when you work for free, the power dynamic often skews. The client might unconsciously see you as less than a professional, or the project is a low priority. Getting paid even a token amount sends a message. Your work has value. Covering your costs. As a beginner, you'll likely have expenses. Maybe you invested in a decent camera, some software, or even just the gas to get to the shoot. Charging something at least covers those basic costs. It also sets you up to learn business skills like making quotes, invoicing, and handling payments. These are critical skills for a sustainable freelancer career. If you skip that early on at the start, you'll have a harder time introducing it later. Avoiding the free cycle. If your first several projects are free, it can be very challenging to break out of that cycle. You'll have references and portfolio pieces perhaps, but those initial clients may not be willing to be your first paying clients since they got it for free. By charging even a little, you get used to the idea that your time is money, and clients get used to it too. It's much easier to gradually raise a low rate over time as you gain experience than it is to start from zero and suddenly jump to market rates. Setting that precedent early that I charge for my work establishes good and professional boundaries. Filtering out the worst offenders. The moment you put a price tag, no matter how small, it filters out the clients who absolutely refuse to pay anything. And frankly, those are often the worst clients. And by worst, I mean the most demanding and least appreciative. By insisting on some form of payment, you likely won't hear back from those who wanted a completely free ride. And that's a good thing. It saves you from trouble and frees you to seek better opportunities. Encouraging serious clients. On the flip side, a client who truly has a small budget but is serious about their project will find at least a little bit of money to invest. Maybe they forego on an extra frill and pay you a few $100s. That client is going to be much more committed to the project's success and treating you as a professional partner. They also are more likely to come back with bigger projects or refer you to others as a professional rather than labeling you as the person who just worked for free. So, in summary, being paid something is about acknowledging the principle that creative work has value. It sets the tone for your career. You can start with entry-level rates. There's nothing wrong with that. But do start with rates. You'll gain experience and some income, and you'll train yourself to negotiate and articulate your value. Those early lessons will pay off big time as you progress. A note to clients: what to expect when you don't pay creatives. See, we've focused on advising freelancers, but it's worth speaking directly to any potential clients or customers out there who might think offering exposure is a clever way to get work done. If you're a client considering asking a videographer or other creatives to work for free, here's a few things that you should know. Number 1, you get what you pay for. If you insist on not paying, you often end up working with someone who is very inexperienced or unprofessional. That person might be talented, but juggling other jobs, so the project may suffer delays or lower quality. They simply can't afford to pour all their time into your project. By contrast, when you invest in a professional, you're paying for their full attention, reliability, and honed skills. Expecting top-notch results from someone you aren't compensating is extremely unrealistic. Lack of accountability. A freelancer working for free might drop your project if a paid opportunity comes up. And honestly, you can't blame them. Paid work has to take priority for their survival. So your project could be left unfinished or delayed. Without a financial contract, the freelancer has less incentive, and maybe less bandwidth, to go above and beyond. If you really need the project done on time and to spec, having skin in the game motivates everyone to uphold their end. Relationship damage. Asking for free work can sour your reputation. Word gets around, especially in local creative communities. You may be labeled as someone who doesn't value creative labor. And in the long run, this can make it harder for you to find quality people to work with. It's far better to be known as a client who pays fairly and respects collaborators. That reputation will attract better talent, which in turn yields better results for your business or project. It's a win-win. Ethical and economic impact. Consider the message that you send by expecting free labor. If you have a budget for venue, equipment, marketing, or other expenses, but not for the person creating your video, it implies you see their work as not worth real money. And that's disrespectful of the craft. Also, if creatives can't make a living, they might just quit, meaning fewer skilled people available in the future. By investing in freelancers now, you're actually supporting a healthy creative industry that you can rely on in the future. Alternatives if truly a low budget. If you genuinely have no budget, just be honest and don't dangle false promises. Maybe seek out a student who is explicitly looking for experience, or better yet, adjust your project scope to something that you can afford. Perhaps you film something yourself on an iPhone if it's not mission critical, but don't expect cinematic quality for nothing. Another option, delay the project until you have funding or run a fundraiser. Many creatives are open to negotiating and working within constraints, but zero is often a non-starter if you want reliability and quality. In short, clients who value creative work will get the best results. Those who attempt to get it for free often learn the hard way the results may disappoint or they burn bridges with talented people. And as the saying goes, if you think it's expensive to hire a professional, wait until you hire an amateur. So if you're a client, consider budgeting something, even if it's small, as a token of good faith. You might be surprised how much more enthusiasm and dedication you'll get from a freelancer who feels like their work is valued. Creativity thrives when it's respected and rewarded. In conclusion, know your worth and demand fair pay. Exposure is not a form of payment. It's a big takeaway. As a freelance videographer or creative, your skills, your time, and your effort have real value, and they deserve real compensation. While the idea of working for exposure might be sold to you as a stepping stone or a necessary evil when you're new, the truth is it often does more harm than good. It depletes your resources, sets a harmful precedent, and rarely yields the promised benefits in return. The freelance world can certainly be competitive, and saying no to any opportunity can feel risky. But consider this. Every time a creative says no to unpaid work, it pushes the industry just a tiny step towards a healthier norm where people are paid for what they create. The only way to stop people from asking creatives for work for exposure is to say no every time we're asked. In other words, by valuing yourself, you help others in the community as well. Set your boundaries early. Decide what you will and won't do. Perhaps you'll allow one volunteer project for charity that you love per year, your yearly pro bono quota. But everything else has to have a price. Maybe you'll agree to a discounted rate for a friend, but not zero. Whatever it is, make it clear to yourself and to your client. When you communicate confidently that you charge for your work, you often are met with respect. And if someone tries to argue or guilt trip you, it's a major red flag that you probably shouldn't be working with them anyways. And finally, let's remember, you chose this creative field because you're passionate about it, and you should enjoy your work. Getting paid for your passion doesn't diminish it. If anything, it enables you to keep doing what you love. A well-compensated creative is able to be more creative because they're not burnt out or worrying about basic survival. By insisting on fair pay, you're setting yourself up for a sustainable and rewarding career. Before I wrap this up, there's one last segment on what to do if you ever decide to accept an exposure-only gig, despite all these warnings that I just gave. Because life isn't black and white, and sometimes you feel an unpaid opportunity is too interesting to pass up. If that happens, here's how to protect yourself. If you do accept an exposure gig, do it on your terms. After everything that we've discussed, you've probably already convinced yourself that working for exposure is unwise. But let's say a scenario came along where you do want to give it a try. Perhaps a one-time passion project, or helping a connection out, or testing the waters with a big name for free. If you choose to proceed with unpaid work, it should never be purely on the client's terms. You need to set the rules clearly strictly to protect yourself, and here's how. Define a limited scope, not an open-ended freebie. Be very specific about what you will deliver and what you won't. For example, you might agree to film 2 hours of an event and provide a 3-minute edited highlight video. That's it. Any extra shooting, additional edits, or extra videos are outside the deal. By limiting the scope, you prevent the client from endlessly expanding the project, since you're not getting paid for those extras. Make sure that they understand this is a one-time, limited engagement. Set clear do's and don'ts up front. Outline the rules of engagement. Do this in writing. Email at minimum, but preferably in a formal document or contract. For instance, clarify the turnaround times. Maybe you'll deliver it in 3 weeks, since you'll prioritize paid work first. How feedback will work. Maybe you'll allow 1 round of revisions max, or none on the free edit. And that's okay, you're in control. Include the usage rights. A smart move is to retain ownership of the raw footage or project files, until or unless they pay for them. You might grant them usage of the final video for their needs, but you keep the right to use the work in your portfolio or elsewhere. Also, specify that they must properly credit you in any use of the video, on websites, descriptions, or anywhere else the video is seen. Essentially, lay down every expectation so there's no confusion. Always have a contract or written agreement. Even if no money is changing hands, a contract is your safety net. It formalizes everything that we had just discussed. Scope, timeline, credit, deliverables, and any other conditions. It can also include a clause that since this is a free project, the client cannot demand additional work without mutual agreement. And you can even state an hourly rate for anything extra in case they want to pay more for it. The contract makes it clear that this is a free arrangement, that this is a special case and not the norm. If you're not sure how to draft one, you can use a standard freelance contract template and just adjust the payment section to say fee waived or something, but still include the project's monetary value on record. For example, the value was $2,000 and the fee waived of $2,000, meaning the balance is $0. This way, the client sees what the work is actually worth, and it's crystal clear that this isn't free for whatever you want. Maintain professionalism and boundaries. Treat the project professionally, but don't bend over backwards the way that you might for a high-paying client. In practice, this means that you should communicate like you normally would, meet your agreed obligations, but don't allow the client to keep piling on. Since you're not taking payment, you also have the right to walk away from the terms if they're violated. Make it known politely that if the project deviates from the agreed upon plan, you'll have to bow out. It sounds tough, but it's necessary to protect your time. Retain the option to showcase or case study. Ensure that as part of the deal, you can publicly talk about or display the work. One of the few things that you might get out of an exposure gig is a portfolio piece or a case study to show future clients. Make sure the client won't prevent you from using the finished video on your website or social media. In fact, you might negotiate that they help your exposure by providing a testimonial or LinkedIn recommendations for you afterwards. Get it in writing too if you can. In summary, treat a free project almost more strictly than a paid one in terms of settling rules. When you're not charging, you must compensate by protecting your interests aggressively. Remember that you are doing them a favor, not the other way around. You are the one with the valuable skill. They are the lucky ones to get it without cost. Keep that mindset so that you don't slip into feeling indebted or subordinate just because you agreed to help out. And once it's done, do not make it a habit. Treat it as the exception that proves the rule. You did this once under these conditions. Next time, it's back to business as usual with payment. Working for exposure is a path fraught with pitfalls. For freelance videographers and creatives, it's usually not worth it. Value your craft, set boundaries, and encourage clients to value it too. The more that we all push back against exposure only, the more that we can foster a creative industry where talent is respected and paid. After all, we want to build careers that thrive, not hobbies that drain us. Exposure might get your name out there once in a while, but respect and fair pay will keep your name out there for years to come and keep you in business doing what you love. So here's to knowing our worth and helping others understand it too. Your work has real value. Don't be afraid to ask for it. All right, and that's a wrap on this episode of CinemaCache, brought to you by Jwayne Productions, where your story meets the lens and gets turned into something that actually moves people. If you got value from today's episode, do us a favor. Hit subscribe, drop a rating, share it with someone who needs to hear it, or just scream it into the void. We'll take it. If you have questions, want to work together, or anything else, slide into our DMs or hit us up at jwayneproductions.com. Until next time, stay creative, stay curious, and stay sharp behind the lens.